does the Americans, when they come here to like Parramatta or, do you know what I mean, or even Eastern Creek, for example, do they come here and do they actually like, are they friendly and give you guys advice or whatever, or do they just kind of stick to themselves and they're like
within reason? Like they're all friendly.
Do they get the shit stone and go, oh yeah, you hit me through this? Do they get they're not aggressive at all?
Oh, they race more aggressively.
Yeah.
But they probably handle their shit better. Like if they're professional, they race every day of the week. They know that sometimes shit happens. I've never had a yank pissed off with me.
Okay.
They've only ever been friendly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you learn a bit from them. Like they probably race more aggressively, but they manage to do it cleanly too. Like there's two people that have raced me. Actually, no, sorry. The most aggressive person I've ever driven against was Lockie McHugh.
Okay. And he was a go-karter too back in the day. Yeah.
But he raced me cleanly. Like, and it was actually at the Classic last year.
Okay.
Started the first heat race. I think he started on pole. I started out of fourth. We had two starts where guys crashed and they were both in front of me. So I ended up moving up the row and starting on the outside of him in the heat race. And we went, and I remember getting probably what felt like an inch off the wall. And I'm just looking beside me, watching his right rear coming at me. I'm thinking, fuck, I'm going to crash here. Like, he's going to wipe me out because, the Classic for us is our chili bowl, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, that's our biggest car. Counts like, what I think, 118.
Yeah.
At Warrnambool.
Is that the biggest one ever?
No, they did break 120 one year. I can't remember what year it was.
Yeah.
But that's our chili bowl. So it's elbows out. There's aggression. There's, no apologies for shit. We go out there to win and that's it. So he raced me in a way that I thought he's going to wreck me. Yeah. But he must have pulled it up perfectly. Like he raced me so aggressively but so cleanly. Like 1 inch. I reckon he pulled up an inch off my left rear and I was an inch off the fence. Like gave me just enough room to pucker my butthole and not crash. And then we raced on. Like same thing once at Toowoomba. Like, I enjoy racing against Lockie. It shows me sort of how you can race extremely aggressively and hard and still not crash. Now, after what's happened at Archerfield last week, did you see that between Lockie and Macedo?
I heard about it. I didn't see it.
Yeah, so I'm sure there's a lot of fans that would probably argue with me whether he's a clean driver or not.
The hard part for me now with doing this podcast, it's hard for me to keep up with all the races live while doing the pre-production.
That was interesting, Archerfield.
Yeah, so you can tell me about it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll do it diplomatically because I get along well with Carson and Sean Dyson. I get along well with Nick Speed and Lockie McHugh too, so I'll be the diplomat. But there was a slider thrown by Carson that they both had contact and took each other out, and there was a bit of a punch on in the pits, or a lot of a punch on in the pits. Yeah, crew chiefs, all that stuff.
Kind of reminds you of the Tony Stewart days. In Parramatta.
Oh, and there's always a mixed responses to that. Like, do you want to promote yourself as a family-friendly atmosphere where you don't fight? Like, that's bad. Let's not do that. Yeah. Or do you promote it for people who like the excitement? Like, let them fight. Let them show their emotions. Are we too robotic these days as far as, even football players or
well, NASCAR's changed. Do you know what I mean? Like NASCAR in 2006 to 2010, they had a lot more of like the WWE style type of thing in the pits.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably fall somewhere in the middle of that. Like,
I guess it's hard because the problem is with so much social media now, you know how when you're in it, like it's like I do fight sports, we're talking about people doing it here, but a lot of the kids see stuff now on TikTok and stuff and then think I want to take that to the streets, but it's not, they don't understand why or what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
And someone might be pissed off and it might look like they're punching on, but they're not necessarily going in to kill the person.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas then they take it too far on the street and next minute you're hearing there's a king
mindset.
hit or something.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? We're in a different world now to where we were.
I would hate to be trying to promote a sport like that.
Yeah.
Because how do you walk that line of, are our drivers boring now because they don't say the wrong thing? They get up there, they thank their sponsors, they kiss everybody's ass. Yeah. Good boy, well done. Or do you let somebody be themselves, a character or a personality where they might go on and beat the shit out of that guy?
True.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you find that balance as a promoter or as a sport to go, we don't want to be robotic, but we also don't want to be NASCAR where we look like a bunch of rednecks punching.
You also want to sell seats, basically. If you could get Warrnambool everywhere at every speedway track, the actual...
It would be a professional sport. There would not be any sort of semi-professional sort of sport there. Sprint cars would be like a V8 supercar.
I think sprint cars do have that because honestly, because I don't want to watch cricket in the off season, right? No. I want to watch it on mainstream TV, which is what WA's doing, which is what Toby pointed out. Do you know what I mean? There's so much potential with sprint cars and speedway right now.
That's like between my I've only been thinking of it the last 12 months, probably since Eastern Creek Open. I was like, I would love to promote a race meeting once. Like an annual race meeting, just a once-off, because I'd still rather race, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think there's a heap of potential in sprint cars. I think it's very dependent on the track that they're given as to how good that product is, how good the racing is. There's a lot of factors there, but I think done properly, speedway could be, or sprint cars in particular, could be much bigger than it is.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
I think it's like we saw in WA, you know how they're filming it on Channel 7 and bringing it, we were saying online, where we're not seeing it. I said to Dan, we don't see it here in our states on TV.
Absolutely not.
I know that Stu was saying it's because they can't promote crashes and stuff, but I don't get that when we've got like UFC and things like that.
Yeah.
That's what I don't.
Just supercars on
yes,
TV.
And they
explain to me that.
Yeah, see, there's so many things when I was sitting there thinking about it, and I was like, I don't understand this. Of course you don't have that in the ad. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, but then I'm like, I don't understand why we can't air this. We're airing way more dangerous stuff.
Yeah,
like we
100%.
just like the UFC. What was it? One championship last week. We watched Mikey just crush that guy's knee in 20 different ways for like 4 minutes, and that's okay.
It's like,
but
that's all right.
God forbid we put on sprint cars. So I'm a little bit lost with how this all works. Yeah,
Chariots of Thunder up in Darwin do an awesome job too. I don't know if you've watched much of that, but they get on 7 Mate as well. They're getting into all the government grants to help make sure that the show, that sort of period up there is funded well, so they can put on a great show, and the track is prepared well. So there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle. But when it's done properly, I think it's a great show.
Yeah.
And Warrnambool proves that time and time again. I know they've had troubles with their track this season, but again, when it's done right, there's no better show.
They should 100%, by the way, in my opinion, televise that event, by the way, every year. Warrnambool Class, like on Channel 7. Because
that one baffles me. And I don't know how much TV costs and all that, so I'm not going to sit here and upset the people behind the scenes that are going, well, that's bullshit. We can't do it because of this, this,
well,
this, and this.
Motorsport Australia's involved now, so they could potentially help that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's heaps of avenues there that could...
I think that would be I'm hoping that becomes a great partnership and that helps Excel Speedway.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have it in parts, you know, like the Chariots of Thunder up in Darwin. It's televised. It's promoted really well. You know, they do the motorcade down the main street, down Mitchell Street in Darwin, where they hook, start all the sprint cars up, hook them all onto, straps and tow them down the street. So the general public can see it and get a feel for it. Perth is doing brilliantly over there. Like, hats off to those guys. Warrnambool has a brilliant event. I feel like New South Wales is being left behind a bit. And I say that with all due respect to promoters and people behind the scenes trying. Yeah. But we're missing something.
Yeah, there's a lot of growth. It's like we said, when you sit in the arena there at Eastern Creek, there's no sponsorship, for example, on anything. I said that to Dan, you look around, but next door we've got Eastern Creek where the supercars are, that every single, like around the track, you've got all the sponsors usually, all the big screens up the top. And I said, we're just missing, I know that they've got a long way to go, there's all the stuff going on, but that's a huge growth area.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, I probably say everything, if there's any constructive criticism for Eastern Creek, I say that keeping in mind that, yes, they're only new, they've got a lot of work to do, and they probably haven't had the easiest run. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
They're also shutting down that Archerfield.
Yeah, that's got to be hard for them. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm in no way shitting on them. But there's a long way to go with Eastern Creek, and it probably will get there. I hope it does.
What I miss, though, is, but you would love it too, because remember you guys, the Ultimate Sprint Car Championship, you'd have photos of yourself around the track.
Yeah, that's famous to a couple of thousand people.
Wade Auger and Stewie did, like, all the guys behind that. That was, for me as a fan coming to the stadium, that was cool because you know who you're watching. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, that was probably the brainchild of, well, not the brainchild, but we had the promoter there at the time was Barry Waldron. He owns that East Coast Pipeline team with that Lockie McHugh drives for.
Yeah, okay.
So he owned Parramatta at the time.
And Robbie was driving for him at the time.
And Robbie was driving for him.
Yeah.
So at that, in the space of a couple of years, he owned Murray Bridge Speedway in South Australia. He owned Parramatta and he owned Toowoomba. He was the first promoter. And again, I'm probably never going to be allowed in at any other tracks anymore because I'm doing a lot of shitting on people. But Barry was the first. So sprint cars 20, 30 years ago used to roll up on open trailers, couple of tunes, a couple of tanks of fuel, a tyre or two, and a couple of shocks. Yeah. That was it. That was
in the 80s, yeah?
Yeah. Probably even in the 90s. It was really grassroots racing. Yeah. In the space of 20, 30 years, we're now driving around in semi-trailers, teams kitted out like supercar teams. Like, it's not unusual. Like our truck, personally, we have a semi-trailer It's 48 feet long, maximum height. We carry two complete cars. With
in
all
the one trailer?
Yeah, with all parts for a third car to assemble it if we wanted to hit the road and do World Series, for argument's sake.
Yep.
We have a shock dyno, we have a kitchen, we have living quarters for drivers of the truck and stuff like that. Like, the level that the teams have taken the sport to over the past 20 years, and what we do isn't out of the ordinary. Like, go to Eastern Creek on just a standard race night, and you could have Sean Dyson there, who's immaculate. Nick Salad, like Mark Saller's team.
Yeah.
You know, the Caunts, the amount of, you know, DTM Motorsports, Bohard Racing, which is a new one, the amount of teams there that, apart from not having a B-double truck, look like a supercar team driving down the road.
Yep.
And for 20 years, the track's never changed.
Yeah.
It still looked like, you know, it was dug out of a paddock. But the teams are rolling up looking $1 million, but the track doesn't. So Barry Waldron has always been my favourite promoter, purely for the fact that he arrived, bought tracks, brought them up to the standard that the teams had picked themselves up to, and all of a sudden did things like he hired actually a guy behind the scenes, Steve May, to take care of things like promoting Parramatta and creating the ultimate sprint car championship, and that was televised for its first year. I think it was it was on Fox Sports.
Yep.
But hanging all the banners up, I went in there countless times for voiceovers and photo shoots to hang your photo on the track.
Where was that? Where was that photo shoot with the car and that? I've always wondered because it's still.
Oh, with mine personally.
Yeah.
So that was separate to the track. That was Wade Oranger just by himself came up to the coast.
Yep.
And we found one of the local beaches and parked the car there and took photos and stuff. So that was completely separate, but all around that same period where Barry was happy to hire Wade, hire Stu McCarthy, hire Steve May to take care of marketing and advertising and stuff. I think Gavin Skeen, who's the art of speedway photography, who's a weapon in his own game. Like, talk about the best of the best. He was doing work for them. So he assembled a team of guys that must have cost a bomb. But that track was now brought up to the standard that the teams had been up to. You know, so I love that about Barry. Because as far as I'm concerned, the glory days of my racing in speedway were under Barry's watch. A lot of people didn't like how Parramatta ended under his ownership, but what are you doing, COVID?
It's a bit hard because at that point,
how do you navigate that?
Like, you're overrode by the government. You know what I mean? Like, you can't.
And we don't know what happened behind closed doors.
Like,
did they forcibly take it today or last month? Like, and people are going, well, we could be running a race meeting now. Like, I don't know what negotiation happened behind closed doors. And I'm fortunate enough to have grown up in a business, you know, a business owning family where it's like what everybody sees on the outside probably isn't what's happening behind closed doors. So I don't hold any grudges for not getting a farewell to Parramatta as such. As sad as that was, but like I said, what do? You're in COVID times. The government's, you know, forcibly taking your track off you. I don't know how you navigate that and keep everybody happy.
I knew Parramatta was coming into an end, and so did you with the Scott Darley Challenge. When that basically announced it was basically the last one, I was like, this is a sad time. Do you know what I mean? As a driver for yourself and a fan, you're like, fuck, because that event purely was like our Warrnambool classic. Do you know what I mean?
And that had the same razzmatazz, I guess, as far as a New South Wales Speedway event, like, because it was a 50 grand to win. It was a memorial race, which was obviously very near and dear to a lot of people's hearts there. So
I thought it was cool how the winner of the first night had to choose number. They could opt for the 19th spot, which is Scott's number.
You need to promote stuff like that. Like, change it up a bit. Like, the biggest thing I hate that Eastern Creek doesn't do right now is, and you've probably saw it at Parramatta, the pole shuffle. I hate watching a shootout where it's basically another time trial session, another qualifying session for the 6 or 8 fastest guys. This is probably before your time, Brooke, but if you watch pole shuffle videos where they'd get the guy that was in 8th spot, put 7th beside him, 2 laps, 2 cars, throw the kitchen sink at each other. It was actually a match race. The winner moved on. They'd verse 6th and 5th. So the guy that was meant to start 8th could actually work his way up to 1st by match racing the other guys for 2 laps at a time. And because you knew there was no other drivers on the track, like, that was like gloves off shit. Like, people were throwing moves on each other that would not work in a race. It would wreck everybody, but it was like, fuck it, it's me and him. He knows I'm going to do this. So there was a bit of give and take. You could race harder in the pole shuffle than you could the rest of the night.
I remember once, I think maybe for memory, that I think you withdrew. I think you just couldn't give the shit about it. You were like, I don't want to. There was one night where one sprint car driver at Parramatta, like, there was some controversy, and one of them was like, I don't want to do the pole shuffle.
That definitely wasn't me. I love the pole shuffle.
You're like, give me the damn pole shuffle.
Yeah. I think one of them, it might have been one of the Americans, he was like, I just can't be bothered because I'll just go for the 19. I think it might have even been the Scott Daly Challenge. One of the drivers cracked the shits and then didn't decide to do one of the pole shuffle thing, and then obviously one guy went through from the 8th or 7th to the next one, and then he'd already been rolling around the track, so he's warming up his tyres, his engine, and that's what helps the guys starting from the back because
they're already hot.
Yeah.
But no, look, there was 2 pole shuffles for me. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's cool.
That's all good. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so there's 2 pole shuffles for me that you may have been thinking of. I've never thrown the towel in one, but I remember one, and I think it was Scott Daly or a 50 lapper, and Kerry Madsen was in the Caneric racing.
Yep.
The American racing wheel car, whatever it was, the black and grey car. I remember it vividly.
Yep.
And I'd started the pole shuffle, I think in 8th, something like that. I think the first car I versed was Grant Anderson. I think, by memory, don't hold me to it. I beat him, which wasn't expected out of me. The next one is Stephen Lyons. Beat him. Didn't expect that either.
Yep.
And the next one is Kerry Madsen came out. And I think the general consensus of the crowd was, give it to Kerry, go do 2 practice laps, basically, because I think Wade...
That was what I remember.
I remember Wade saying over the microphone very clearly, it's like, careful, young fella, if you're going to pull on Superman's cape, you better have a pocket full of kryptonite. I remember watching it back on, So I think they went green, and Kerry had like 50 metres on me by the time we got to turn 1.
Yeah.
And by the time we did 2 laps, he had like the length of the straightaway. So I was like, okay. I'll pretend like I didn't try, but I tried very hard. I just got my ass wiped. And the only other time I did spectacular shit in the pole shuffle was there was one pretty recently towards the end of Parramatta where I was actually starting to get decent, I thought. I pulled a monster wheel stand off the start of the pole shuffle, like dragged the tail tank halfway down the straightaway. I was like, oh, fuck that up. So but I still kept going. But it's pole shuffles there, man. They're very entertaining as far as I'm concerned in sprint car racing. They should be at every race meeting, every single one. Yeah. Every single one. The fact we don't do them at Eastern Creek is a problem.
Yeah. So you want them back. And do you reckon
100%.
I'm pretty sure Wayne Baines, because Brooke and I went up there for one of the meetings, I think he was trying to make it squeeze and work for one of the...
It's time consuming. That's the problem. So if you've already got a meeting not running well on time, the first thing to go is, their dashes or their shootout race. Yeah. And a the top 8 sort of races, whether you call them a shootout, a time trial, or whatever the hell you call them, the pole shuffle in that format is the longest. It takes the longest to complete. Yep. So I don't think promoters like them for that reason. But that makes no sense to me because I think your crowd loves them. Yeah. And if you want to,
Can't they start the event earlier also for supports to get that stuff in? Is there a way to time consume it, or is it?
We keep coming back to a reason why I'd love to promote an event. Once a year, like an annual event, because
any promoters listening here,
I'll do it myself. Fuck it. I really would, because I agree. Yeah, there's plenty of things we could be doing for that track, and not that track, but speedway in general. Yeah, there's no reason support categories can't start earlier. And we went to Dubbo last season, and I was keen as, because Dubbo, I feel like country people get behind motor racing more. Probably why Warrnambool is so successful. Yeah, you're not in Melbourne, you're in Warrnambool. Yeah, and
there's nothing out there really. Bar a zoo.
I didn't say that. You said that.
You're definitely did not so much hate mail now, Dan.
Thought you were going to edit that.
I'll leave that in.
I'll leave that in. Make sure they know he said it. No, but I feel like that's probably partially a way you could grow our sport is go to country towns. Yeah, and Toby. By the way, what Toby's doing is awesome too.
Yeah, I agree.
Much needed. But when he came out to Dubbo when we raced there last season or season before?
Last season. Yeah.
So he made a really interesting statement that stuck with me. He goes, Dubbo's population is triple that of Warrnambool.
Yeah, right. Did not know that.
And Dubbo as a track is probably the closest shape to Parramatta across the country.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
Going, why the fuck aren't we out here more? So issues there, and I'm not going to, tracks that don't have sprint cars often probably need to have them more often to understand how you can refine that race meeting and make it run properly. Yeah. So sprint cars destroy tracks in the sense that we butcher them. Yeah. They end up smooth, but they end up from sticky and brown with lots of grip to glass slick where you're tearing tyres off them. Yeah. So one of the major contributors to that is heat and when you put a sprint car on the track. So Dubbo had us out there by memory, it's like 34 degrees.
Yeah.
So it's already hot. You're wetting the track to try and keep moisture in it. It's drying up as quick as you can wet it. And they had sprint cars on pretty much first.
Yep.
Like we're baking the track. We're qualifying in like 34-degree heat.
Yeah.
It's like that's a prime example of support categories should all be racing from 3 o'clock onwards.
Yeah.
Or pick a time, whatever time you need as a promoter. Have them racing.
At the start.
Yep. They do the least damage to the track and leave enough racing for the night so that sprint car drivers aren't just constantly racing. Like we need time in between races to change the cars, get ready and all that stuff. So if it were me, I'd be running all the heat races for support categories before a sprint car even touches the track.
I agree.
Sprint cars go out and qualify. Then you may have a B main for a support category in between qualifying and heat races. And the sprint cars do their heats. Have an A main for a category in between the second round of heats, and then have your last A main for your support category before the B main of a sprint car. And then the last 2 events of the night should be a sprint car B main straight into a sprint car A main.
Yep.
And that, for a multitude of reasons, would be better in my opinion. Because, like I said, preserving the track for longer while it's hot, you're not destroying the track with sprint cars. They tend to run better on time, support categories. Like a lot of them are self-starting. You know, if they spin out, they start themselves up and go again.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I'm a big believer in that. Like what you said, we should be starting earlier. Support categories on first. A sprint car shouldn't hit the track till 6 o'clock at night. And then sprint car should be the last event. There's nothing worse than seeing a sprint car event finish.
Yeah.
And going, oh, now we have the wingless sprint A main. And I love wingless sprints. But the crowd fucking empties.
Yeah.
And nobody's watching the wingless sprints. Like they lose half of their crowd, half of an opportunity to showcase sponsors and showcase their product because they do some brilliant racing. And if you're a sprint car guy trying to sell merchandise in the pits after the race meeting, if the family with young kids has gone, fuck it, the sprint car race is done, we're going home, you don't get anybody through the pits. There's no atmosphere after the race meeting where kids are running around getting your signature and like getting your autograph or trying to buy merchandise and stuff. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah. That happened last time when we were at Eastern Creek. They did that. It was the support classes finishing, and we said, well, we're going to have to go now because of the way that timing everything ended. Even as a thing, you didn't mean it, but it was just like, well, it's late now, and then we're not going to be able to get down. And you guys, Dan was like, I think the sprint car guys are going to be packed up. I don't think I'm going to be able to talk to anyone.
Yeah, 100%.
And it just became, weird. So that's everything you said makes sense. So it makes me wonder why they don't.
Oh, look, I'll probably get crucified for it, but there's probably reasons behind that. So I know there's time curfews.
Yeah.
Sprint cars being the loudest category that you can get.
Oh, okay.
I do believe there's noise and noise restrictions. So potentially you can run a wingless sprint or a street stocker race after the curfew.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's one of the reasons that I've heard.
Even at Eastern Creek.
Yeah, there's noise. Yeah,
right.
Which is strange with the drag strip next door.
Yeah.
But yeah, so... And, you know, look, if that is a problem where you're breaking curfews, so you've got to put the sprint cars on first and have the support categories run afterwards, more to the point, start earlier.
Yeah. Just reshuffle. Yeah.
Start earlier or put all the support categories first so you know the sprint cars are going to be the last thing on the track. If the crowd so pleases to go down and buy merchandise and get autographs and stuff, they can do that.
Yeah.
So...
Have you had merchandise or not really?
No, in the process.
Okay. So you actually are making some now?
Yeah, I got Roddy Balboa designing some shirts and stuff and some hats and flags and all that. So, and he's got some artistic flair, that guy. I like Roddy's shit.
So Dan will be one of the first people to buy it. Good. He owns all sprint car stuff. Like he's even wearing like SVG's new one.
Yeah. How good is it to see people like that in sprint cars?
I was going to ask you, how do you find it now having a supercar guy? Because he's in New Zealand now, like sort of like learning and on the track there. But if he was to come over here and race, are you guys all excited to see him in there?
Yeah, for sure. There's no like us versus them.
Yeah.
We're sprint car guys. No, fuck that. You come race my shit, I'd like to race your shit. But